welcome to our training, The Keys to Unlock a Better Customer Experience. By way of introductions, hello, my name is Emily Jarvis, and I'm the Senior Manager for Events here at GovLoop. And today I have the added benefit of also being your moderator. So thanks so much for joining me. And a special thank you to our partners at ServiceNow and Granicus for helping us put on this session today. So let's get right to it because we've all heard the phrase, the customer is always right. And it's a sentiment that's really popular in the private sector, but the same idea and mentality really applies to government too. And the success of an agency's mission depends on the effective customer experience, or CX. And while agencies face unique challenges, there are opportunities to improve CX and align more closely with the practices seen in the private sector. And so today, our speakers will share their lessons learned and best practices for improving CX at your organization. But before we get into all of that, I have a few housekeeping items to go over with you all. First things first, we have some great resources available for you on the console under the resources button. You can find all of these resources along that bottom panel. It's also where you can see our speakers and their titles and learn a little bit more about them. If you need the closed captioning feature, just look for that show icons at the bottom right-hand side. You can get that added accessibility there. Of course, we hope you don't have any technical difficulties, but if you do, look for that send a message. You can send a message through that Q&A tab to one of our colleagues, and they'll be sure to help you out. Of course, you can also engage with your fellow government employees today utilizing that chat button, and I want to hear from you, so make sure you are chatting alongside with us. Finally, we are recording this session, so check your inboxes tomorrow because we'll email you a link so you can watch the entire session on demand. All right, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, let me introduce you to our speakers. Joining us, we have Tanya Slater-Lowe, who is the Director for the Office of Public Affairs at the National Contact Center at the U.S. Department of Labor. We also have Chris Dilley, the Chief Technology Officer for State and Local Governments at ServiceNow. And last but certainly not least, we have Angie Peterson, the Vice President for the Granicus Experience Group. Thank you three so much for being with us today. So to better understand each of our speakers' CX journeys, I sat down for one-on-one fireside chats with each one of them. Here are those stories. Here to talk about all things CX, from trends to challenges, is Tanya Slater-Lowe. She is the Director for the Office of Public Affairs for the National Contact Center at the U.S. Department of Labor. Tanya, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is very exciting. Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to start off with something that may seem a little bit rudimentary to someone who's been in this space for a long time, but I feel like the term CX has evolved and changed. You know, at first it was customer experience, then it was customer engagement, and you could throw in employee engagement and all of these words, and they all mean slightly different things. So I'm curious, what is your definition of CX? And maybe do you have an example that you can share that kind of highlights this?
Yeah. So, I want to go there with you. Let's go back. I mean, the term CX and customer experience actually became very popular towards the end of the 20th century. Okay. Now, in 2008, I believe, is when it actually replaced the term customer satisfaction. Okay. And that's when the contact centers and call centers and help desks and, all that's like, oh, okay, wait a minute, this is different. And with that, the mindset of what customer satisfaction was changed. So it wasn't just a term. I actually use them separately now. The customer experience is different than customer satisfaction. So just to move on with that, the customer experience is just that. It's every step of the way of their feelings, of their interactions, of the experience experience that they receive while receiving a service. Whereas customer satisfaction is at the end of this, were you happy, were you not? So it's very different. And I know that we use them interchangeably, but I don't think that the term is interchangeably as sometimes we get comfortable in using it. But I know for us, we focus in on the customer experience. And in order to do that, there's three things that we focus in on, and that's people, process, and technology. The balance between those three is where you're going to get that good, nice, solid balance and understanding of providing an excellent customer experience.
Yeah. So if I'm listening to this today and I'm saying, Tanya, that methodology seems to make sense, right? People,
Mhm.
process, technology, all of that makes sense. And I want to bring something similar to my organization, whether that's big or small. What are some strategies that you've seen
Mm,
really work well
yes.
to bring CX into practice? Because, like you said, we're not just talking about the bitter end here. We're
Oh,
talking about the journey. So,
yeah, yeah.
what are some strategies that you see?
Well, the first thing is you need to understand your business and you need to understand your customer. And I know it's like, well, I understand my business. What do you mean? I know my customer. Wait a minute, hold on. Let's pull back for a minute. Let's really take a look at your customer and understand their needs. So I'll give an example. At the National Contact Center, we have three different types of customers, and we call them our customer profile. The customer profile number one is that customer that calls us or emails us and says, I know exactly what I want. Please give it to me and have a nice day. And they're
Yep.
asking for a number or location, an address, and they know. Then we have our second customer. They call us and they're pretty sure they know what they need to do what they need to do, but they don't know what that's called. They're not sure what agency, that could be located in. And then we have our third profile of our customer. And you know what? They're not sure. They may have to call IRS, but I'm going to try labor because I think it has something to do with my employer and the paycheck stuff. So, with that, we really focus in our processes and, of course, the people that are trained to help them get to where they need to go. So, those three focuses are huge. Now, one of the challenges there is that consistency, always keeping it consistent in providing, regardless of what the profile is of that particular person. You must always measure, we record 100% of all of our calls, as well as the keystrokes of the customer service representatives. And that's for quality training, and it really, really helps. I would recommend that to everyone. You have to have solid quality assurance standards. You must have calibration sessions for these quality assurance standards. You must be calibrated. The actual standards must be scored and rated properly, or else you're going to go, what happened here? This is a great call. Why did it score so low? Or this was a horrible, call. Why did it score so high? So there's all these different moving parts that you need to consider when you're talking about creating the platform for a great customer experience, because it's not just one type of customer. There's lots of different kinds of customers that we need to, be able to provide this great service to, and not just one platform. They have choices. They can call us, they can text us, they can chat us, they can email us. So for each one of those platforms, you also need to modify what you do and how you do what you do for the customer.
And making sure that those different platforms are saying the same message too. And that it sounds like it would be obvious, but it's hard.
It's
It's
hard.
really hard.
Yeah.
One
Well,
small change here needs to be updated in
yeah.
17 different places. And
Well, I will say, and that, excuse me, the way that we do that though, that piece, we've made it easy. It was way harder for us in the past. We use one knowledge base. So
oh,
there's only one knowledge, absolutely. We have chosen to use Salesforce. And so regardless of what age, we have 28 different agencies, regardless of the agency that they call, it's the same content. The referral is the same referral. So we don't care whether they call us, email us. We have 9 different toll-free numbers. It doesn't matter. They all use the same knowledge base. That would be a recommendation I would give to everyone.
yeah. I tell this example all the time, much to my father's chagrin, because he's like, Emily, you make me sound ridiculous. But my dad is one of those Luddites who hates technology. Um,
Uh,
and he didn't have an email. For years and years and years, mostly because he has a wonderful wife who took
okay.
care of it all for him. And we
Yeah.
love her. We love her. But he went to apply for Social Security benefits. And in order to get benefits, you have to have an email. And he was like, I'll just put in my wife's email. And they like fill out all this stuff. But my dad's wife is a few years older than him. And so she already had Social Security benefits tied to that email. And they were like, you can't use this email. And my dad was flummoxed. He was like, I don't know what we're
Hey, wait.
I don't know what we're going to do in this situation. And he went down to the Social Security Administration, and a wonderful woman who does not get paid nearly enough set up an email for him and walked it through. But I think about that example all of the time, because not only how much time that woman dedicated to my dad, but also sometimes technology needs to come into play here. Social Security needs to modernize, and they need to have these systems in place. But there's a generation of people who are using these contact centers in different ways. And so, to your point, having those varying contacts based on kind of your user and their perspective is so critically important.
Yes, I agree. I agree. And that's wonderful for your dad too.
Yeah, I'm like, go Social Security Administration. Dad,
Yes.
get it together, man. You're not that old. Get it
No,
together, Dad.
no, that's
And
right.
he's like, no thanks. No thanks, Em. All right. So as agencies are going through this process, and there's varying levels of kind of improvements in this process, various levels of expertise. Where can folks go wrong when they're implementing CX best practices?
Oh, there's so many turns. Okay, first of all, there's no shortcut to customer experience. There's no shortcut. And as soon as you think you're going to do, that's the whole thing about what customer experience is. It is the person feeling all parts of that process, and that's their experience. It's like, okay, you're going to go on a roller coaster ride. You're going to go sit in the seat, sit there for a minute. Roller coaster doesn't take off. You get buckled in, and then the guy says, okay, get out. You go, whoa, 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 wait a minute.
Yeah.
Well, that would be shortcutting customer experience.
Yeah.
So that's number one. Don't think of any shortcuts. Think about what that experience is as a whole. You must maintain consistency in whatever it is you're doing. That's a pitfall. If as soon as you become inconsistent in your processes, that's going to be a problem, and you're definitely going to run into some failures. Because we're talking about continuous improvement, we're also talking about training, and not just in the classroom training. We need to have CBTs, computer-based training. We need to make sure that we are monitoring our staff in the service that they're providing to ensure that they're following the standards, following the processes, following the guidelines. And if they're not, well, then wait a minute, hold on. Let's take that person to the side and let's work on that specific skill so they can get better. One of the things I would tell you we've struggled with, which I think everyone does, as well as my colleagues, are soft skills.
Yeah.
So, the big thing, empathy, we need you to provide empathy. For me, I came from a very empathetic household. My mom was very empathetic. Like she taught, myself and my sisters and my dad empathy. So we give it because we've gotten it, but that's not the case for everyone. And it's such a struggle. Sometimes it's easier for me to teach someone how to navigate through a brand new system, that hard skill, than it is for them to truly understand how to provide empathy to a person that comes across as sincere and not robotic. So
Yeah.
those are some of the pitfalls and challenges that we get into. But the great news is that there are lots of tools out there on the internet and different companies that are providing support and training if you don't have it in-house to help you get through those things. But those are definitely those soft skills just in general. The excuse me, please, thank you, that comes normally, that's not scripted for the customer service representative, can be really challenging And it also does hurt with the transitional statements.
Yep.
I mean, look, the people that we're hiring, our profile is a high school graduate, it's not a college degree, and when they don't have those soft skills, it really makes it more challenging. However, those are challenges that we have overcome with continuous improvement activities and maintaining our consistency and providing that guidance to the customer service representatives when providing the service.
It's always so interesting, right? Because everybody talks about the technology piece. Like, we're gonna bring in this new piece of tech and it's gonna revolutionize the process. And sure, maybe it changes it a little bit, or makes it a little bit smoother, but it always comes down to the people who are doing the work. And do they have the right skills, and training in order to do that? And we so often forget that human element,
Yes.
um, especially as a lot of people are contacting a contact center when maybe they're not having their best day. Uh,
That is
and so, kind of meeting that moment is not always the easiest, especially on a repeated regular schedule. That's a really hard and important skill. So I appreciate you sharing that. All right. So you said where folks can go wrong. What can they do right? So what are your best practices?
best practices. Well, I mean, and it's so big and there's such a huge laundry list of that. So let me try and pare it down as much as I possibly can. Best practices are number one, let's start from the beginning. You
Mhm.
cast a large net and you hire the best person for the job. That's number one. Okay. And that's for all of your positions in the contact center. There should be nothing else that you're looking at. It's fitting the criteria, hiring the person for the best job. Once you do that, a solid curriculum that's repeatable and understandable and has already been somewhat rated by previous people taking the training and from training the trainers, make sure your training is solid, that it includes all of those hard skills as well as soft skills. And the actual don't can't be pen and paper. If they're going to be on a computer, you got to do the training on a computer. I've seen these mistakes being made. It's like, I cannot believe they actually took out paper and these people are going to be working on a computer and they're like, they don't navigate well. Well, I wonder why, right? So whatever they're going to do, they need to be trained in that environment. Very, very important. During the training and during their orientation, they must be taught about quality. They must be taught about quality standards. Many times that sits in the back seat, not until, the customer service representatives get out of their nesting periods and things like that. And then they go, oh yeah, by the way, if you don't pass these quality assurance scores, you're out of here. It's like,
Yeah.
whoa, wait a minute, hold on. They're just no, that's the time to take the time to do that wide coding, to do different monitoring as if they were really being scored and rated. Let them feel that because like myself, most of my colleagues record 100% of their calls. Some people have never even heard themselves before. Yeah, it's weird, right? And so let them experience those things so that it's not brand new the first time. And usually you get way better results there. The other thing is your feedback processes. Your
Yeah.
feedback processes from the floor are critical to your operation. And now that you have this wonderful feedback and you put this process together, now what are you going to do with it? So you have
Well,
to do something with it. You have to take that information. You have to analyze that. Is this for all my shifts? Is just for the night shift? Is this something to do with our CTI system or our CRM system? Where does the issue fit? And then where are you going to take that and escalate it and make sure that it's addressed? And then to close that loop, let the CSRs know that you've done something about what their challenges are, or whether it's a CSR or supervisor, whomever reported the information to you. The other thing I would say is we do 100% customer satisfaction surveys. So for all emails and all calls, we didn't always do that. That was actually a really good use case. But anyway, we now do 100% and we do a way better job at really capturing larger numbers, which gives us a more accurate score of how our customers truly feel about our service. I would say with customer satisfaction surveys. Be very careful that the questions, we know we're in government, they have to be OMB certified, but be careful and make sure that the questions that you're asking are specifically about the service that you're offering, not possibly the answer that they get from another program that they may not like. It should be about the customer's experience and the customer service that your contact center is providing to them, period. I can go on and on and on. I mean, there's lots of so many best practices, but those are some fundamentals that if you're able to achieve those, you're on a great path.
Yeah. I talked to Barbara Morton over at the Department of Veterans Affairs. You're
Yeah.
smiling, you know her. Her
Yes.
thing is, don't ask a question if you don't actually want the answer to it. She was saying, we're asking all these questions, we're getting all this feedback, and then we're not doing anything for
Anything.
a variety of reasons. Some of them, maybe it's not practical, it's not possible. But she was like, why are we asking it then? Because we're just soliciting information that we can't solve. So she, I think she would be in strong agreement with you.
I know Barbara would
There.
agree, yes.
Yeah. Uh, it's so true though, because
Yeah.
I, as a parent, sometimes I ask my kid, and then I'm like, wait a second, I don't actually want your feedback on this. I you could not. But no, I think that's really wise advice. Okay. Final question here for you, Tanya. I'm gonna ask you to peer into your crystal ball a little bit. I think we would be remiss to say there aren't a bunch of technology and personnel changes happening right now. So what do you expect to see evolve, whether it's with technologies like AI or things like that? Wherever you want to take this is perfectly fine. But what do you expect to see as kind of some of the top trends in the next couple of years?
Well, number one, very vaguely, I expect to see just what we saw in the last few years happen within the next few years. And that's technology growth.
Yeah.
Now, we're at another more advanced place than we were 5 years ago. So the advances are going to seem even more advanced. With that, I would say this. The National Contact Center and many of my other colleagues in the government, we are trying our best with our budgets, our very slim budgets, to keep up with the technology that's currently out there. But a little bit different for us in the government. We have a different balance than some of our private industry colleagues. Number one, we have a lot of my customer base, they don't have a computer. They don't have a smartphone. They still have they live in the middle of the country and they are very happy picking up the telephone, and that is their choice. So to force some of this AI technology would be to create a horrible customer experience for a large percentage of my customer base. So as soon as they have the option in the interactive voice response messaging system, would you like to be serviced by, Julie, the automated assistant, or would you like to speak with a live customer service representative? Their choice is going to be live customer service representative. And then we're going to have some that say, you know what, let me try out Julie. And as soon as they get frustrated, they want out. And it's our job, because we're the government. We cannot take them through, down south, up north, to the west, we have got to let them get to a live customer service representative, or else we have ruined their experience with the government. And to be perfectly honest with you, many of them, their attitude is, no, 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 you're the government. I pay your salary, you work for me, and I don't want to talk to a machine. And yeah, you're right. So I think for us, as far as technology is concerned, I think that we at the National Contact Center, and I talk to my colleagues all the time, we're going to grow with technology, and we're going to implement those technologies and make sure that we do have chat and chatbot and those escalatory processes that are streamlined to get right to an agent if the customer wants to speak with an agent. And we have to explore these technologies. And let me go there. I mean, it's a cost factor, and it is cost effective to implement some of these technologies, which balances off the human resource component, so that our smaller budgets can do more. Let's say, do more with less, right?
Yeah.
So I do think that we will be implementing the technologies, but with a different balance that it's looked at. at in the private industry. And one more thing I want to say about this, and this is about, I don't know, maybe 6 years ago. It was this big comeback, if you remember, in private industry. We have live agents.
Yeah.
You remember that? It was like so huge. And I'm like, we always had live agents. We didn't get a commercial about it, but it was like all the credit card companies, and we have live agents, and they're Americans. And it's like, wow, well, we always had Americans, and we always so these kinds of things, they come back at you. So they really turned over to be 100%, AI, and that didn't work out too well. People
Yeah.
didn't like it. They lost customers. We're the government, so we don't lose customers, but we can create angry customers. I'd rather create happy customers.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's always something that gets lost in the narrative when we're talking about government is you don't have an option to not serve someone. You don't have an option, and they don't have an option to necessarily seek someone else. If you're
That's right.
applying for a driver's license, if you're paying your tax, you only have one place you're going.
We're the only game in town.
Yeah. And so for a long time, I think people were like, well, you get what you get. And it is, but that improving that process goes to so many things. It creates better trust, it creates better relationships. I go back to my dad's story. He will rave about the Social Security Administration every chance he gets.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
a relatively unique story
yeah.
sometimes. So I think you are absolutely right that when you have those opportunities to have those narratives, they're incredibly important. So thank you, Tanya, so much for sharing
Yes.
your insights with us.
And thank you for having me.
Digital services can be a true catalyst for better customer experience, but they have to be done correctly. If they are, they can be a massive time and money saver for the community and the government agency itself. To get to the bottom of this, my colleague Candace Thorson sat down with Angie Peterson at Granicus to learn about digital services value add. Here is that conversation.
So each time a person walks into an organization's office, it costs about $10 to address their issue, right? And when someone picks up the phone to call, it costs about $8 on average per call. Digital interactions, in comparison, are closer to 10 cents, which is a much better return on investment, right? And the US is so big, so expansive. We've got millions of people, millions of unique use cases and service needs. But for the most part, as unique as those are, most people are connected to their devices. Many people are on their devices, and they want to do things quickly online, and they don't really care about the spend on IT. They just want it all to work. So one way to think about measuring success for digital service delivery and improving experience overall, right, is to help people, or to think about helping people become self-sufficient, the self-serve citizen almost, right? And that online self-service portals, accessible web services, all of these are easy ways for people to self-navigate and guide, and have a more positive, intuitive user experience. And having those better experiences builds trust, makes it easier for them to, engage with government, access the services. But it also really does drastically reduce labor and resource costs, right? It can limit the call center volume. It can have less paperwork. It can reduce manual processes. Even better if you can get to those things where people are, freed of some of those mundane and administrative tasks. They have, like responding to requests to reset a password or something really, really straightforward. It gives employees space to do the much more high impact, high value needs, and address those needs that people have. And it's therefore more fulfilling for employees too.
Why do agencies, all different levels, but why do they struggle with digital first services?
Oh gosh, I mean, it just requires so much more than any just one change, right? This is truly a whole organizational mindset and culture shift. It's, organizing websites and information based on the citizen needs, their top tasks, their preferences, and not on departmental, operations or functions. We've talked for a long time about breaking down organizational silos, right? New ways of doing work. And it's not easy. It's not a light switch that you can just flip. But that ultimately that cross-functional, data-driven approach and mindset, that sort of test and iterate approach, it's the key and it's the path to really delivering on the public's, gosh, highly personalized expectations, that digital first delivery, self-sufficient citizen concept, right? Government needs scale and security and flexibility to do that. Um, and it is more than just any one solution. It's a whole new approach and mindset.
Digital first is a broad mindset, right? It encompasses an awful lot of things. So could you talk to me a little bit about how the idea of digital first notifications fits in? Like what does digital first mean in that area?
I think, we see this a lot in our personal or commercial lives, right? Maybe getting a notification to receive your bank statement digitally rather than in the mail, or a credit card statement in your secure inbox, or electing to get our W-2s through an HR portal rather than delivered through the mail, right? Those are a lot of those kinds of notifications happen in our personal lives all the time. And there's a real opportunity when you think about, I mean, just again, some of these are, broad averages and estimations, but federal agencies are spending around like 1.5 or sending, sorry, about 1.5 pieces of mail every year. And if we could help shift some of that, even just like 30% of those mailings to digital would save about 2.5 billion in the printing and the labor and the mailing costs, right? So shifting just even half of that could yield another, I mean, you just get into billions, right? There's just so much that goes into the cost of sending things via paper. So digital notifications is a way to shift a lot of that. Channel shift is really how I think of it, but moving from paper to digital delivery. We help one federal agency, just as an example, we're helping the people that they serve elect to receive their beneficiary handbook via email rather than mailed to their homes. So, over 4 years, we've been running this campaign to help drive that behavior change. And we've helped more than 450,000 people elect to receive their 125-page benefits handbook via email and, reading it just online rather than having it, printed and mailed to those folks' homes. Saving just that one agency millions, right? Just in the cost of printing and mailing alone, right? So those notifications can be used and tailored to, one-to-one to really help people, remind them that this is an option, encourage them to elect to receive that option, and then also respond to them after they have made that selection or made that election, to sort of confirm that it's happening and let them know when to expect it and those sorts of things.
Thank you so much, Candace and Angie. I really appreciate you all highlighting how and why digital services can be impactful in today's age. It's really helpful to get that in perspective. So I appreciate your time and energy sharing your insights with us today. For CX to be a truly powerful tool for change, agencies need to deliver the same experience over the phone, in person, and online. However, matching all of those experiences can be really hard. So, to get a better handle on that situation, I sat down with ServiceNow's Chris Dilley to talk through the challenge of different customer experience touchpoints.
We need to continue to be consistent with how we present this information. And then also, as we think about customer experience. You know, many people, different generations of people are going to have a more digital experience, where people from a different generation may want to have a more in-person experience. And so we need to be thinking about those things. So we need to be consistent, but we also then need to be able to provide a different type of experience for who's ever coming and whatever their situation is.
Yeah. My dad recently was available or qualified, my brain doesn't work obviously, to get Social Security benefits. And he's the guy that showed up to their offices in person and was like, "Hello, I'm here to sign up." And they were like, "Hello, we have a digital form for you. Here you go." And so he sat down with this lovely Social Security administrative woman who filled out the form for him because he's not digitally savvy. And he had a tremendous experience. And I always like to shout that out because they provided such great customer experience and service for him. But to your point, it was the same experience because, well, they were using the digital form. He was just sitting there in person. But if he had to navigate that digitally by himself, it might not have gone as well as it did. So I love that example.
Absolute great example.
All right, two more quick questions for you here, Chris. So the first is, you were talking about making sure you're having those same experiences, whether they're digital, in person, over the phone, however it transpires. I'm also curious about how AI can help maybe break down silos between different services that exist. If I'm over here applying for a fishing license and I also need a boating license, could I do it all at one time or something like that? How can AI help break down some of these barriers that exist for really real reasons sometimes in government between different service centers?
Yeah, your example of a fishing license is a great one. So imagine I do come to renew my fishing license, in the spring, and imagine using technology and understanding who Chris Dilley is and the profile of me as a citizen and the different other licenses and permits that I may have. Imagine if it also says, "Oh, your vehicle license is set to expire here in the next 30 days. Would you like to also pay that?" Or, you know, your driver's license, whatever it may be. Being able to look across those service centers is a huge advantage. And being able to, again, trust that data and have that data available to drive that experience is going to be key. And you touched on it a little bit earlier, as from a need perspective, from a social assistance perspective, we don't want citizens to have to go to, one door for childcare, another door for child welfare or child support, or food assistance, financial assistance. So having that no wrong door approach, so no matter where they go, that they can have a consistent experience and be able to, you know, start wherever they need to start, and then still have the ability to get those other services that they may need, apply for those, get those and get the response or understand what they need is key to those service centers. And then from a worker perspective,
Mhm.
being able to look across all those service centers as well to know when, Chris Dilley calls, that we can say, "Hey, we understand you've applied for these and all these different programs." And so in the various stages that they may exist within the confines of the benefits or eligibility determination. And again, that's driving a better experience. It's given full transparency to how we serve those citizens.
I love it. All right. So, we are in a time of great change. So it's my favorite question to ask that people absolutely hate because no one likes to predict the future. But Chris, what do you expect to see evolve over the next year as it comes to government and AI? Where is this going? What do you expect to see?
Sure. I'm a technologist, so I love the technology, but I also am a realist to understand that we need to understand how it's going to make lives better. Um, and so over the next couple of years, I think you're going to continue to see, and I touched on it earlier, as we look at data sovereignty, the privacy requirements of a lot of this, to build those. You know, fraud, waste, and abuse, identity theft are real things. And so as we look at how to better protect citizens, their data, and really identifying who they are so we can provide better service, I think you're going to see those things happening, you know, underneath the covers. Those aren't the real popular things, but governments are going to get better at how do they utilize that data and how do they protect that data. And what I think over the next couple of years, I think the connectivity between who you are and the services that you get is really going to become transparent. You know, as far as, again, how we provide better entitlements, how do we predict the services that you might need, and how to, you know, anticipate. I refer to it as anticipatory government. You know, knowing that your child is going to graduate from high school and that they may go on to the, you know, secondary education, anticipating many of those things to provide a better experience and to be able to make sure that they're successful in whatever it is they endure. I think you're going to see more and more of that being driven, you know, at the education level, at the social services level, at the you know, higher education, and even in the workforce. I think you're going to see a lot of that, and it's pretty exciting.
Thanks so much, Chris. I really love that optimistic view of CX in the future. So I appreciate you sharing your insights with us today. Unfortunately, we are out of time today. I want to thank our three wonderful speakers for sharing their perspectives with us. But before everyone logs off, I do have a few quick reminders. First things first, there are some terrific resources for you to download in that resource section. So make sure you are getting those extra learning opportunities before you sign off. And like I said earlier, we will be sending you a link to the on-demand version of this training. So check your inboxes for that tomorrow. But on behalf of GovLoop, Granicus, and ServiceNow, I hope you enjoyed today's session. And as always, we really appreciate and value the work that you do. So thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedules, doing the important work that you're doing to spend a little time with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you in our next training. Bye, everybody.